Mrs. Carroll's class, we have Scott for doing a fabulous job during our readathon. Great reading and support. For Mr. Halverson's class, Logan, outstanding work on our Chapter 6 math test. From Mrs. Soto's class, John, who made AR gold. From Mrs. Stucker's class, Mrs. Smith's class, Alex, for working so diligently to make math club. From Mr. Horvath's class, Gregory, great job on your volcano flip book. From Mrs. Maher's class, Mackenzie, your research for the science fair project was fantastic. Way to dig deep. From Mrs. Maris's class, Zachary, for staying on task and completing work on time. From Mrs. Warner's class, Evan, for an excellent response to literature that included superb text evidence. Keep it up. From Mrs. Rose's class, Celine, for determination. Way to go, sticking with those math races. I noticed. From Mrs. Frank's class, from Jaden, for completing all homework assignments this trimester. From Mrs. Draper's class, Diana, for a wonderful attitude about schools, always gives 100%. From Mr. J's class, Joshua, for getting an A+ on his daily oral math quiz. From Mrs. Theo Sahinger, for working hard to finish on past math races. Keep it up. For Mrs. Desmond's class, Aidan, earned several AR points this week. For Mrs. Bemis's class, Alyssa, for reading 6 books at the readathon. Whoa, that's an awful lot. For Mrs. Lewis's class, Austin, for setting a good example of great behavior. For Mrs. Newman's class, Roy, for always doing your best.
Listening, please.
For Mrs. Cameron's class, Esteban, trying his best to make his AR Math Club goal. For Mrs. Shear's class, Tony, for making Math Club. For Mrs. Chamberlain's class, Kelsey, for showing perseverance in math. For Mrs. McPherson's class, Michaela, doing a great job on her T-Bear paragraph. Way to go. From Mr. Helms, Aidan, for his outstanding effort. From Mrs. Brunson's class, Tyler, for making Math Club and improving an AR. Way to persevere.